Hi everyone, today's session is called Social Media and Project Management, bringing the two worlds together.
My name is Bill Dow. I have 26 years in IT, 24 in project management, 9+ years at Microsoft, but 11 running large PMOs. I've been instructor of project management for many years, teaching locally at Bellevue College, in Vancouver, British Columbia, and in Toronto, Canada. I have a strong passion for project management, PMOs, and project management methodologies. I've written 3 books: The Tactical Guide for Building a PMO, Project Management Communication Tools, and Project Management Communication Bible. I've also written several articles on projecttimes.com.
Today we have 4 agenda items: social media taking over project management world, reasons for communicating, social media tools and understanding the functionality, and hiring social media experts. Social media is taking over our lives. Project managers are very eager to use social media on their projects. So much so that PMI, in their 2010 Pulse of Profession, surveyed that 76% of organizations polled already use network and collaboration tools. That was 1,157 members. Almost 2,000 people are polling saying they're using social media already from a networking collaboration tool perspective. Among the tools that they surveyed, they came back and said SharePoint, instant messaging, NetMeeting, Project Server, LinkedIn, GoToMeeting. So a lot of collaboration type of tools, which makes sense because a lot of project teams are collaborating and starting to use these types of tools. In that survey, they also said 30% of respondents to social media tools to communicate with their project teams. 24% reporting they're communicating with their stakeholders in that way as well. 25% of respondents say they actively use tools. 27% use it to report status. 48% social media tools for document sharing. So great percentage is very high there. Around project management tasks, you see 34% reported using collaboration on tasks, 19% on tracking reporting, and 32% hosting online meetings. So there's some great usage of social media out there, again, around that collaboration, document sharing, status sharing type of status. But I'm thinking about the other tools. What about the Facebooks and the Instagrams and the Twitters? What about those tools as well? Have we thought about how we would use those tools on our projects? We use them every day. Have you considered them? Those same tools that you use on your phones, but how useful would they be on your projects? How do you use Twitter? How do you use Instagram on your projects? What about Facebook? Can you use Facebook on your projects? Have you even thought about that at all? Well, yeah, it happens every day. When Coke launches a new drink, they go right to Twitter. When Boeing posts a picture of a new plane, they'll do that on Facebook. Warner Brothers launches a movie trailer, they'll go right to Instagram. These are hundreds and hundreds of examples of all the ways that companies are using social media tools on their projects. Have you thought about that? Before even considering to use social media tools, I think it's important to break down where you'd use them. Would you use them in initiation, planning, executing, controlling? How about mapping this PMI lifecycle processes to the various social media tools and start that mapping and see how you can actually start to use them? And that's exactly what I've done. I've taken the PMI lifecycle process, initiating, planning, executing, controlling, monitoring, and I've mapped the larger social media tools. So not necessarily the network or the collaboration, but the Twitters and the Facebooks and the Instagrams. And you can see that we've laid them across the 5 lifecycle processes. So initiation, for example, you can use Facebook, you can use Instagram, you can use Twitter, you can use YouTube, right? To initiate your project, you can certainly use those tools. Many of the tools do drop off, though, as we move through the stages. So as you go to planning, executing, controlling, monitoring, you'll see a little bit slightly drop off where those tools just may or not be applicable or make sense. Back to closing, though, you certainly would fire up those tools again. You can, get when you're ready to launch that Coke product or that drink, or you're ready to launch a plane on Facebook or a new movie trailer, you'd certainly start using those social media tools. So I'll just give you a minute or so to look at those and just have a look and start thinking about how you would map various social media tools to those lifecycle processes. Make sense? Yeah, really good. Yeah, you like that? Excellent. Well, so again, so start looking at where you'd use those tools across those lifecycle processes. So social media is here to stay. There's no question. Project manager is in the best position to understand the social media tools and where they will not work on their projects. But it's important to spend that time. You really want to learn, you want to understand each of the tools to figure out how to move forward, stay current in this very fast-paced social media world, and how they'll be applicable on your project. Let's change topics now and talk about the 5 reasons for communicating. I think this is so important. If you don't understand why and what you're communicating, regardless of what tool you use, I think it's going to be really critical to really lock that down so you know what you're going to communicate to be able to move forward. So here are the 5 reasons why people communicate. They inform, to give facts or information; persuade, to cause someone to do something; motivate, to provide someone with a motivation to do something; interact, to act in a way to affect someone or someone else; and inspire, to feel the urge and something to do or feel something. So these 5 critical ways of communicating are so important to understand, not only from a social media perspective, but just to understand in general, but actually when it's related to social media, it makes a lot of sense. So they're not social media related, they're communication concepts. But when it comes to social media, mapping communication tools to social media tools is important. So for example, a budget spreadsheet, do I motivate with that? Do I persuade with that? Do I inform with that? Well, that's the kind of mapping that you need to do to be able to figure out which tool will work and which tool will use for which communication purpose. And that's exactly what I've done here. I've taken across the top, you'll see the tool names: inform, persuade, motivate, inspire. Down the left-hand side, you'll see the various tool names: budget spreadsheet, business case, change scenario, whatnot. And then in the intersection cell, I say every one of the tools can actually be used to inform. You can use Yammer, Socialcast, Facebook. You can use these various tools to inform. Some of the tools you can also use to inspire. Some of the tools you can use to instruct. And so this is obviously not a complete table. There's 61 tools. But taking those mapping of the 5 communication purposes via the communication tools and then the social media tools mix really gives you a great feel for how you're going to use the various social media tools on your projects. What do you think? Make sense? Yeah, and this is of course just a sampling, but I think it gives you a really good feel on how you're actually going to do that. So as we summarize, to understand the purposes is critical, right? You just need to know those 5 purposes. Once you get the 5 purposes, you can then map them to the communication tools, then map to the social media tools. For example, the budget spreadsheet. Is it used to inform? Can it be put in Facebook private group? Yeah, potentially, right? But spend that time, understand why you want to communicate is so important, and allows you to marry those 2 worlds together. One of the key things that we want to do when we think about the social media tools is we want to understand the functionality. A lot of people jump on Facebook and post something or like something or whatnot, but what about all the different functionality that Facebook has or Twitter has or Instagram has? And so let's change topics now and really think about the functionality and think about some of the things that they can offer as you look through the various tools and drive through and really make sure you understand the functionality that's available to you to be able to use on your project. So not all social media tools are created equal. There's no question, right? Not all tools are going to be able to share files, post photos, provide an instant messaging platform. But what functionality would be available, right? As a project manager, it's going to take some time for you to match the social media tools to the specific functionality, to the specific needs of your project. And so marrying those 3 worlds are really important. But have you ever thought about looking at Instagram, for example, and looking at all the various functionality it has besides just posting a picture? So that's exactly what I've done. I've taken the 5 PMI process groups: initiation, planning, executing, controlling, monitoring, closing. I've mapped the various social media tools And then I've put the functionality within those tools. So you can see Facebook initiation. What would you do? You'd announce and talk about your project or your product. In planning, you could store files, have private conversation, share project information. Executing, controlling, same thing. Monitoring, same thing. And then closing, this is where you make the announcement that you just launched that new plane or that new product, right? That new drink or whatever the case may be. So if you look at the various life cycle processes, you look at the tools, and then you dive into those intersection cells, it really gives you a great feel for what you could do within those particular areas. Make sense? I'll just give you a minute or two to look at those. Yeah, so again, very, very good. Again, this is just a sampling only, but I think it's really going to help you kind of marry those two worlds together. So did you realize Facebook had private groups? I've been involved in several projects where we've actually utilized those private groups and shared some great information. LinkedIn's got private groups as well. Twitter has direct messaging. So does Instagram. So again, lots of functionality within these tools, very, very applicable to your projects that you may or may not be utilizing until you spend a little time and dive deep into those. So as we summarize, it's really important to understand the functionality in every one of these tools. You really never know what they can do until you spend time really focus with them. I found out the other day that Instagram has email as well, email functionality. So as the tools grow and mature, the functionality will change all the time, and you've got to make sure that you're tracking with that. So spend that time, make sure you really understand each of the tools. Using products. All right, what we want to do now is jump into our last topic of the day, is hiring social media experts. So one of the biggest things that you're going to want to know is if you hire a social media expert, what are some of the roles and responsibilities that they're going to play? Larger companies nowadays are hiring social media experts. It's so important, so critical. But what are they going to do, right? What do? Well, they're responsible for online marketing. They monitor social network sites. They interact with blogs. They manage social media channels. And that list really goes on and on. It's a great list here. But these are some of the things that they're going to want to do when you hire a social media expert. If you're part of that hiring process, you're going to want some of these roles and responsibilities laid out. I'll give it just a minute to look at those. Develop site contents, train personnel. So great stuff there. But probably the most important aspect of hiring a social media expert is that legal connection, right? So one of the most important aspects of having a social media expert on the team is that tie to the social media or to the legal person. So for example, right, you're not out there tweeting stuff about your project that your legal team hasn't approved, right? A social media expert be able to help you with that. So if you're part of that hiring process, you know when they first start, you want to connect them with the legal team to know what's important and not to be able to send out. So legal plays a huge role in a social. So as we summarize, social media experts are becoming more and more common in large corporations. I'm also starting to hear smaller and mid-sized companies are hiring social media experts as well. And you as a project manager, you've got to make that connection, right? You've got to work with your social media expert, figure out what project details you can share, what you can't share, make sure it goes to the legal team. But social media experts are clearly becoming a key part of businesses today, and you want to jump in on them and make sure you're actively connected with them. Okay, so that's all we have today. Let's summarize and wrap up. So as we summarize, social media tools are here to stay. Project managers are slowly starting to use them on their projects. Use the theories and concepts we went over today. It's definitely going to give you a head start in using social media tools on your projects. And spend that time and learn the tools, right? Learn these amazing tools, learn the functionality, and figure out exactly how you could start using the tools today on your projects. For more information around social media, I've put that whole chapter 5, Social Media and Project Management, in my brand new book, Project Management Communication Tools. Please check it out today.